kart in Sunday Thunder with Kia in gear.
Hello, Sunday Thunder continues here on Eurosport. You're seeing pictures now live from Toronto, Ontario. This is round 11 of the FedEx Champ Car Series. Good evening, I'm Martin Haven. Yes, Ben Edwards and Jeremy Shaw on location in Toronto. We're having temporary sound problems, so hopefully we'll be back with our commentators live on site in just a moment or two. Well, let's bring you up to speed with what's been happening in downtown Toronto, the capital of the Canadian state of Ontario. The track's been modified slightly over the area between turns 7 and 8. It's now a couple of feet wider. Hasn't made too much difference to the times, though. The drivers have, they say, not really noticed too much difference either. But what they have noticed is very hot and very close conditions. It's been steamy, muggy, whatever you like to call it, scorching heat in Toronto all weekend. And that has affected the drivers in terms of the surface changing here during the qualifying periods. Well, the man who qualified best was Brazil's Gil de Ferran. Gil de Ferran securing his first pole position on a road or street course since the 1997 Molson Indy race here in Toronto. Molson, of course, sponsors of the round, so he will start on the front row of the grid. Dario Franchitti alongside him, and Franchitti had been the overnight pole sitter and hoping to go for a third pole in a row here. There is the Scotsman in the 27 car right behind the Brazilian. Both of them, of course, alumni of the British Formula 3 Championship in their respective eras there. Michael Andretti, second last time, starts in third place. Jimmy Vasser will line up fourth. Christian Fittipaldi, winner for the first time ever in the FedEx Kart Champ Car Series last time out, lines up in fifth place behind the huge line of cars leading the field around. Well, you'll notice quite a lot of new concrete patches on the apexes of the corners where the street breaks up. The drivers are, or have complained in the past about lack of grip, basically hitting a patch of ice. Right now, though, the concrete has been shot blasted to give it a kind of dimpled effect, and that has allowed the drivers to have more grip once the rubber's gone down on the tricky crossover from tarmac to concrete. Well, there was an incident once more featuring Juan Montoya in practice on Friday. They clashed coming in with Gualter Sales coming into the pits. Montoya ran into the back of Sales, apparently caught out that the driver ahead of him, the Brazilian, suddenly decided that he would come into the pits. Change in the lineup as well. You'll see on the back of the grid, if we get a shot of that, Dennis Vitolo driving the 71 machine. He's subbing in for Luis Garcia Jr. And the drivers making their way round what is now a 1.755 mile street course. The course has been remeasured with this latest addition, or a latest widening of the circuit at any rate. So it looks the same, and essentially it is the same, just a fraction wider on the corners. You can see one of the new corners there. The field coming round, under control now as the pace cars pull into the pits. Or the lead of cars with their promotional personalities aboard pull into the pits. The pace car continuing to lead them round here. And Gil de Ferran, the man with everything to do from the start. Dario Franchitti right behind him. And with Michael Andretti and Jimmy Vasser next up, this could be quite some dogfight right from the word go. Never been short of excitement, this race. So we look on board Adrian Fernandez. Fernandez starting down in 23rd. And he'll be hoping to replicate his result of last weekend. Robbie Gordon just ahead of him in 22nd. On board with the 10 car of Richie Hearn, 21st. So these guys all in for a long afternoon behind PJ Jones, the 20 car. And down here as well with Juan Montoya now in 8th position. This is the view of Michael Andretti. He starts in 3rd place. Jimmy Vasser right behind him, You probably can't see much of a view of him. There he is, just bobbing about in your mirrors, if you like. De Ferran and Franchitti then, first row of the grid. The Americans, Andretti and Vassar on row 2. Apologies about the sound. Christian Fittipaldi, winner last time out, and Paul Tracy on row 3 ahead of Canaan and Montoya. Tony Canaan and Juan Montoya on row 4 of the grid. Brian Herter and Greg Moore, row 5. Scott Pruitt and Patrick Carpentier, the other Canadian, on row 6. Cristiano D'Amata and Helio Castro-Neves, 2 Brazilians, on row 7. Memo Guidley and Maurizio Gugelmin on row 8. Moreno and Papis, row 9. Jourdain and Jones on row 10. As they come round side by side, they're in formation, ready for the start of this race. Gilles de Ferran, the pole sitter, looking for the green. They go green. And a start from Gilles de Ferran, a good clean start from him as Fittipaldi moves up into 3rd position down the inside. Jimmy Vassar stays there around the outside, so Vassar in 3rd place, Fittipaldi in 4th. Everybody seemingly getting the drop on Andretti. Andretti in 6th and going further back down, being challenged by Greg Moore. Paul Tracy looking to pick up a place as his teammate does the same, and Dario Franchitti takes the lead. Franchitti leading now. Well, good move from Dario Franchitti in the opening lap. Very important indeed to make up places here, as ever it has been in single-seater racing. Dario Franchitti in the lead now, midway through the first lap. So Franchitti from De Ferran and Paul Tracy unable to move up into 4th place around the outside of Christian Fittipaldi. Still Jimmy Vassar in 3rd place. Then Fittipaldi in 4th, the black car with the Dayglow yellow helmet. But look at the speed of Dario Franchitti.
While you were talking about the gearbox concerns, Derek Walker did tell us they weren't able to pinpoint the problem. Low oil pressure in the gearbox this morning. As you mentioned, they did replace the entire...
Well, apologies now for, as you can see, we're having a slight technical problem here with the pictures from Canada. So Dario Franchitti there in the lead of the race right from the word go, getting the drop on Gilles de Ferran. Almost made the move from the start, but taking it on turn 3. And Christian Fittipaldi looking to up his season's progress again in 3rd position and looking strong at the moment. We'll be back in Toronto in just a moment. And those of you who were with us here for the start of the race, well, I'm afraid that we have lost pictures from Toronto. They've gone down somewhere between Toronto and the forwarding station at New York. So the satellite picture has gone, and I'm afraid that that's possibly largely due to the tragic happenings around Martha's Vineyard and Cape Cod over the last 24 hours. Well, I can tell you that having taken the lead on lap 1, Dario Franchitti still leads. And he's extended his advantage over Gilles de Ferran now by 3.8 seconds. Jimmy Vassar is 3rd, Christian Fittipaldi 4th, Paul Tracy 5th, Tony Kanaan 6th, Greg Moore in 7th place now ahead of Michael Andretti. We'll have more as soon as we can. Laps into the Molson Indy at Toronto. Round 11 of the FedEx Champ Car Series. Live pictures here of the race. Dario Franchitti still your race leader. Gilles de Ferran in 2nd place, holding on to him, but the gap is extending. Franchitti just drove away at the start, and as you can see now, the car's under yellow for the first time. Full course yellow. I'm afraid we've just got our pictures back live. I can't tell you what's happened, but I can tell you that missing from 8th place and down to 12th now has gone Michael Andretti. Andretti qualified 3rd and dropped right down the order. There is the field summary then. Dario Franchitti still the race leader from Gilles de Ferran. Jimmy Vassar still 3rd from Fittipaldi. But look how far down Andretti has dropped. He's gone right off the leaderboard monitor now. So Andretti clearly the man in problems. Well, we're still trying to pick up our live sound from the circuit. Andretti 2 laps down, and Greg Moore, who was right behind him. Well, it looks then as if we've had a collision between Moore and Andretti. Hopefully we will get a chance to see that again. Greg Moore, of course, like Paul Tracy, racing at home in Canada. And the field under yellow. Well, there is Patrick Carpentier. And I believe that we have now established contact again. Let's see if we can pick up our live race commentator, Ben Edwards.
15 laps have been completed then in this race in Toronto, a race that's already seen a few incidents, particularly the retirement now, as we know it, of Michael Andretti. An accident involving Michael Andretti and Greg Moore has caused this yellow flag, and there is Michael out of the car. His race is all over, and this circuit that has been so kind to him in the past, that's seen him win 5 races, well, today the luck's run out.
He said his big thing was to come here because he's tied for 5 wins here and in Milwaukee, and he said he'd like to win here just to break the tie so he could at least say this is his favourite track.
Looking at the race recap after 14 laps, we've had just one leader. Well, that's not strictly true. Only one leader across the line, but in fact, Ferran led the first couple of corners from pole position. 1 caution so far, lasting some 3 laps. Just 1 car out. In fact, that's 2 cars now with Michael Andretti's withdrawal from the race. And what a shame it is to lose Michael so early on. He's always a star here in Toronto. He was passed for the win in the closing laps last year by Alex Zanardi. And it was just an error, really, on Michael's part that's seen him go out of this race. But he was caught out a little bit by Greg Moore, moving to the outside as they came down to turn 3. Having said that, it was always likely that Greg Moore was going to move to the outside. That's the correct line to take for turn 3. And Michael Andretti just misjudged his entry speed into the corner.
It's similar to what happened to Michael Andretti in Elkhart Lake, where he got hit by Adrian Fernandez, but they were both able to continue. So Michael out, let's see what the points look like at this stage, halfway through the championship.
Well, he had moved into 2nd place, 18 points behind Montoya, and today was a great opportunity because Montoya starting in 8th place, perhaps not able to score as many. Gilles de Ferran up in 3rd, Dario Franchitti 4th, ahead of Fittipaldi and Greg Moore, and you can see how close it is. They're all very close at that top end of the table. Adrian Fernandez is not far back in terms of points, and he's made up a lot of ground in this race once, but he's been into the pits already. He's decided to take an early pit stop in this race. Interesting strategy, which may well work for them later on this afternoon.
It actually gained 10 positions. It'd gone from 23rd to 13th, and then the yellow went, and so Adrian ducked into the pits and took advantage. And here we see the young Mexican who won his first race ever here back in 1996, and this is his 100th career start here today. And obviously Adrian would like to improve his positioning after having made that decision to go from the 99 car to the 97. He eliminated his qualifying times from Friday, which had actually been quite good. He got 7 laps in the 97 car, qualified terribly, and has driven a brilliant race so far. And remember, he is now off sequence for the rest of the day as far as the pit stops are concerned.
Yes, an early stop for him, and we'll see how that pans out. We're expecting this to be a 2-stop race, but the last segment is a bit shorter, so it made sense for them to come in at that point. They may be able to make it through on just 1 more stop, which could help them in the later part of this race. In the pits there, you see Dennis Vitolo. Dennis Vitolo driving the number 71 car. This was a very late call-up for him. Luis Garcia normally drives that car, and Dennis Vitolo drives the number 34 car, run by the same team. But Garcia was unable to race this weekend. They looked at getting Tarso Marquez in this machine, but at the end of the day, Dennis was given a late call, and here he is racing this weekend. In fact, he's had a few offs in the course of qualifying and practice, but he's still out there so far.
Because this is the first road course or temporary street course he's driven this year. He's been signed up to do all the ovals, and as you mentioned, he has had just 1 or 2 offs over the weekend.
So Franchitti's 4-second advantage, of course, completely destroyed by this first caution period of the day, but pace-wise, he's looked extremely comfortable up front so far, and he'll be keeping an eye on where Montoya is. Well, Montoya is up into 7th position, came up to there thanks to the demise of Greg Moore and Michael Andretti, and of course for Montoya it's given him a chance to be that much closer to the leaders. In terms of time, there's still a number of cars for him to overtake. We're getting ready for green flag now. Dario Franchitti will be looking to make the break here as he comes through the last couple of corners, and out of turn 11, out to cross the start-finish line, and Dario Franchitti immediately on the pace and pushing very hard. Gilles de Ferran in 2nd place, dropping back a bit, and Tony Kanaan here trying to get past Paul Tracy. Kanaan is down the inside of Tracy, and that was beautifully done. Montoya's right behind him as well, and Montoya will try to take advantage of this too to make another position, but Tony Kanaan has moved himself into 5th place.
And that was a very well executed overtaking manoeuvre. Paul saw him there, didn't move over on him, let him go. He knows it's early in the race and he's got a chance to come back at him now. Oh, but he's going to watch himself because Montoya's right there in turn 3.
I wondered if Montoya was going to stick his nose down the inside there, but sensibly he didn't. He gave Tracy enough room to get back into the queue, if you like. Well, it's not the time to take those gambles.
And the big problem is sticking your nose down in there, as we see now.
Shigeaki Hattori, that is. Yeah, he's back this weekend, but not for long by the looks of it.
Not for long. the big danger of going down the inside and putting your nose down there is if the car turns across you, the rear wheel runs over your front wing, and then you're done for the day.
That's right. Well, down in the pit lane, we've got a disappointed man again. It's Helio Castroneves. This is his fifth, in fact, non-finish of the season in a row, dating back to the second place he had at Gateway. Since then, he has not managed to complete a race, and that seems like such a long time ago that he finished second to Michael Andretti. Poor Helio Castroneves. That Hogan racing car just doesn't want to work for him. Let's go down to the pits and hear from the Brazilian.
Larry, do you know?
No, I have no idea. Maybe no, I had a problem in the gearbox, and I believe it's probably a leak on the gear, so that's why it caused the fire. But man, looks like everything is I can't finish. I have the lucky lady coin in my pocket, and it's amazing. Well, we have to keep trying.
And he's had just tough luck, guys. They changed an engine just before the race and still have problems.
It's incredible, isn't it? Just does not seem to be coming together for Helio Castroneves at the moment.
6 DNFs over the year, but most of them are coming when he's looking competitive too. It's not like he's DNF from last position or something. He's DNF from being quick guy out there, fastest lap. But right now, the fastest guy on the track looks like Tony Kanaan as he defends his position from Paul Tracy that he just took 1 lap ago. Montoya right behind him.
Yes, he looks the most racy, but in fact the fastest man on track is the race leader. It is Dario Franchitti, who's still pulling away from Gilles de Ferran up front as Paul Tracy, his teammate, tries to make up the ground again on Tony Kanaan, looking to try and get down the inside into turn 3. He's late on the brakes. Oh, that was brilliant piece of overtaking from Tracy, and Kanaan just had no answer.
And it looked like Carpentier was getting in trouble in that turn right as we left.
Oh yes, yeah, that's Brian Herter, and he was down there somewhere as well. He was in 9th. He was 1 ahead of Carpentier.
I think Herter got it wrong. Carpentier had to come very wide to avoid him and nip around that corner. That's going to hurt Patrick Carpentier. He'll lose a couple of positions. I don't know if he actually made contact. And if Herter is stalled there again, that may bring out another full course yellow, again eliminating Dario Franchitti's 2.5-second lead.
Well, they're managing to pull Brian's car back. I wonder if they're going to be able to get him back into the running here. Franchitti, as you say, a good advantage of 3 seconds. Let's take another look. Herter down the inside, and he hit the back of Pruitt.
And this is where Carpentier had to come out wide. I knew I saw something. Oh, Cristiano De Matta just getting through there too with a little bit of a knock.
Yeah, I think there was a brief touch, wasn't there, between himself and Mimo Gidley. So we'll just have to see whether that's cost him any time. I think he's all right at the moment. He's being shown as in 11th place. Look at this fantastic group of cars. This is quite a long way down the order, but what a tremendous battle. There's Fernandez there in 16th position. Moreno is behind because Greg Moore is actually a lap down, although he's in the middle of that group. Alonso Jr. is at the tail of that group. That's Junior in 20th place and Robbie Gordon in 21st. Up front, though, it's all about Dario Franchitti. He led the most laps here last year, only to spin out, but at the moment, he's looking very comfortable. To our coverage of the Molson Indy with Jimmy Vasser here lying in a very competitive 3rd place. He's being chased by last weekend's winner, Christian Fittipaldi, but it's great to see that Jimmy Vasser having a decent run for a change. Of course, he had one race earlier this year, Milwaukee, where he ran very competitively, right behind teammate Juan Montoya, running 1 and 2 for much of that race. And this weekend, Jimmy Vasser much happier with the car, and he hasn't had all those niggling little problems that seem to have stricken him so many times this year. Problems in practice, problems in qualifying. For once this weekend, he hasn't had a single mechanical problem with the car, and it shows in being able to qualify well and race well.
It'll reboost his ego a little bit too, Ben, to the fact that he is not getting beaten by the rookie Montoya, who replaces Zanardi, who beat Jimmy a lot since Jimmy won his championship. Now, you know, for the first time in a long time, Jimmy's actually leading his teammate.
Shigeaki Hattori was just moving out of the way of the front runners as they came through. The Japanese driver making his return this weekend for Beckenhausen Motorsports. And it's good to see the Bettenhausen team back. They've missed a few races, which is highly unusual in champ cars. They're nearly always one of the regulars in the field. And they're trying to get another car out. In fact, they've got a Lola at the workshop ready to go. There's talk that Andrea Montermini may well be out in that car before long. But let's just focus on this battle. Third place battle at the moment. Jimmy Vasser versus Christian Fittipaldi. And Christian has a little look down the inside. Yes, this time he makes the move stick. Christian driving brilliantly with that added confidence of winning last weekend, and finally squeezes past Jimmy Vasser. Paul Tracy now right behind Vasser, and it looks to me as though Vasser has just lost a bit of pace, a bit of performance, and Montoya now right behind Canaan in this little group too.
And we can't put that loss down to tyres, because all these cars running the Firestone tyres at this point. We are 24 laps into the event. We've had a few slow laps on the pace car, so I don't know if the tyres are going away yet.
They may be. I know most of the team's concerned about the rear tyres going off anyway. That could come down to driving style a little bit. Some of the drives a little smoother on the power, perhaps not working the rear tyres quite so hard. Let's take a look at that replay. Now look, Vasser tried to go to the inside a bit to cover him, then realised it was too late. Christian was on the dirty stuff on the inside, and yet he still got it slowed down. Shows me that that car is really braking very, very well. And watch out in the background, because Montoya is having another little look at getting past Tony Kanaan.
We've just heard word from the stewards that they're watching carefully Golter Salas, who's actually having a great run, up in 16th position in the All-American Racers Eagle with the Toyota power. Possible black flag for him for fire coming out the back, so maybe he's having some troubles too.
Fire out of the back sounds a bit dramatic, doesn't it? Look, we saw that already once today for Helio Castroneves. It sounds as though somebody else may have problems. And gearboxes do take a hammering here. We saw the problems that Montoya had with his gearbox last week in Road America. We've seen Castroneves already in gearbox troubles. Gilles de Ferran had a gearbox problem this morning in the warm-up, and it is something that we're likely to see throughout the race, I think. Some mechanical problems coming from the gearbox. So mechanical sympathy required from the drivers, I think, a little bit here to try and look after those gearboxes. Michael Andretti's made it back to the pit lane after that incident involving Greg Moore, and we've got a chance to catch up with him in just a second. Michael Andretti was starting well on the grid. He started in third place, made a dreadful start at the beginning, and dropped back down to about 8th or 9th place. Was trying to work his way up and then made contact with Greg Moore. As we just look down the field, there's Mimo Gidley in the blue and white car, the rookie driver. And we've got Bobby Rahal, in fact, first of all in the pits.
Pruitt, and Pruitt maybe pinched him a little bit, and you know, looks like he just locked up the rear brakes and just got sideways on him. Just unfortunately we couldn't keep the engine running, because it would have cost us, but certainly not 2 laps.
At 2 laps back, you're obviously going to stay in, but it really takes a lot of attrition now to try and maybe get some points.
Yeah, all we can do is run as hard as we can and just hope for the best.
Thanks, Bobby.
So Bobby Rahal referring to Brian Herter there. We saw him spin a moment ago when battling with Scott Pruitt. Scott Pruitt's running well, though. He's in 9th position as we ride on board a moment with Adrian Fernandez. Now, he's got himself back up into 13th. In fact, it's just as he goes across the line, it's now 13th position. He's just got past Richie Hearn. And remember, he's already made a pit stop, so this is a tremendous drive from Adrian Fernandez. Meanwhile, Jimmy Vasser coming under increasing pressure from Paul Tracy now, and this train of cars involving Canaan, Montoya. Oh, and look at that. They were almost side by side there as Tracy tried to squeeze past Jimmy Vasser's Ganassi run Reynard.
Paul definitely having a look there and trying to make a move in front of course, what is his hometown crowd.
Let's hear from Michael Andretti now in pit lane.
I think I had a bit of a run on him, and then I saw I wasn't going to get him, but I already was in the braking zone, and he crossed line, and when he went across, it took the air off my rear wing, and I just locked my rear brakes. I couldn't stop, and it was a shame. You know, it's very similar to what Adrian did to me, last week at Elkhart Lake. It's just, there's a racing accident, just, nothing I could do to avoid it.
Did you have the car? Did you have the car that was capable of winning this for a 6th time today?
No, I don't think I did. The car wasn't very good today. It started out very understeery, and then it started to get very loose, so it wasn't the ideal car today.
Did you have suspension damage? Is that why you had to get out of it?
No, I was a little disappointed. I was hoping we could get going again, but they said that my front wing was on the ground and they weren't going to restart me, but I probably could have restarted.
In terms of the championship, is this a crippling blow?
It hurts. it's not crippling. I mean, there's still many races to go, but it doesn't help at all. You know, we'll have to see what happens with the results today.
Thanks, Michael.
Well, you just saw Paul Tracy taking over the position from Jimmy Vasser there, and Tracy moves up into 4th place. Very straightforward pass it was too. He got down the inside. Jimmy thought about turning in, but realized there was no opportunity to do that. And so now we've got Team Green cars running 1st and 4th, with Franchitti enjoying a 4.8 second advantage over Gilles de Ferran. Then Fittipaldi in 3rd place, and Tracy now up into 4th position. Vasser in 5th, and let's go back on board with Adrian Fernandez, who's moved up another place. He's now in 12th.
Adrian Fernandez moved up and moving his way down the straightaway here. Interesting battle going up with Jimmy Vasser there, you saw, as we watched and listened for Adrian to go through the gears. In front of Adrian, we have, what he's chasing down at this point is Max Papis.
Oh, 2 cars off. That's Richie Hearn and PJ Jones, I do believe. Or no, it's Cristiano. It's Cristiano D'Amata, yes, on the left-hand side of the track. And those two were running together on track. They were running in 13th and 14th places. It's down at turn number 1. And look at this. The leaders trying to pick their way through ever so carefully. And Franchitti's got through. De Ferran's gone through. And everybody now trying to find their way through here. It's right on line, and it's very, very narrow. Let's
Whoa! Oh, he was very close.
Let's hope they make it. Vasser is coming to the pits. Jimmy Vasser, lap number 30. That's quite early to be coming into the pit lane, and it does look as though he's been struggling. Look at that left front. Did you see that? That looked very, very worn to me, and I think tyre wear has been Jimmy's problem.
Yeah, because as soon as Paul Tracy got by him, Vasser dropped back again, and Patrick Carpentier was able to catch up with that 3-car battle and now be a part of it. So Jimmy obviously having some problems, and he is going to pull out now with fresh tyres under a full course yellow as they try to prepare to move Richie Hearn on the right in the Bud car, Cristiano D'Amata on the left in the Toyota MCI car.
And that could be bad news, bad timing indeed, as Dario Franchitti takes advantage of this yellow flag to come in and make his stop. Now, this is much better timing for Dario. Jimmy came in before the yellows flew. Dario has come in now that the yellows are flying. The pit lane is open, and this is the first of the routine pit stops for Franchitti. Just about right, lap number 30. Perfect timing, in fact, this yellow flag for their first round of pit stops, and it's clean. He gets away without stalling the engine. Fittipaldi is also into the pit. So is Gilles de Ferran, and these were running 3rd and 2nd respectively. De Ferran gets out, they watch him get away, and has he getting away? Yes, at last. A little bit slow pulling out of the pit lane.
And Tony Kanaan is still being worked on in the pit lane. Gilles de Ferran was able to get out.
And look, that's definitely cost him a bit of time there. Let's take a look at what happened. Richie Hearn was on the inside, miles away from D'Amata. Absolutely no opportunity at all. And I don't know what Richie Hearn thought he was trying to achieve there, because he was never, ever going to pass from that far back. Not unless he had left his braking until he virtually turned in. So Richie Hearn, who's really having a tough time at the moment, had a lot of spins and accidents. It's just not coming together for him at all, as Franchitti leads the field around. Welcome back to Eurosport's coverage of the Molson Indy from Toronto. Cristiano D'Amata's car just being lifted out of the way as that accident caused the caution period that is now being experienced on circuit. Some 32 laps have been completed. Dario Franchitti leads the field around behind the pace car, and now we see a few changes of position behind him, because a number of cars did make early pit stops. If you remember, the 2 Pac West cars made an early pit stop, and that means that Roberto Moreno is now running in 2nd position. Gilles de Ferran is up in 3rd place, as he was following Franchitti, but Moreno now 2nd, de Ferran 3rd, and Gugelmin now being shown in 4th, with PJ Jones in 5th. He also had come into the pits earlier on with Fittipaldi in 6th place.
Here we see Juan Montoya. You see him taking his hand off the steering wheel in like a questioning mode. That's because he's being penalized for running over his air hose. And you see him on the radio button there, radioing in, and he's not coming in. What he's going to do is have to go to the back of the pack for running over the air hose. Normally it's a stop and go, or in this case certainly to the back of the pack. So Montoya, having done all the work from 8th and worked his way up and stay in the battle, is now going to the back of the lead pack, and that'll put him in about 19th position.
he doesn't look very happy about it, but that's the way it goes, and everybody in the championship has had to suffer this in the past. It hurts, doesn't it? You can see him shake his head as he lets everybody through. That is a painful feeling for a racing driver, to let all those cars
come by,
go past. Yes, it's not exactly natural to him at all, but that's the way it goes. Those are the rules. If you hit the airlines in the pits, if you hit it with your driven wheel, in other words with the rear wheel, then you get the penalty. If you run over it with a front wheel, it's not such a problem, but if you hit it with your driven wheel, then they apply the penalty, because obviously if it gets flicked into the air, those airlines, and particularly
the actual gun weighs about 40 pounds, and that thing flying would not be good news.
No, that's right. It can do a lot of injury in the pit lane, and that's the reason, and that's just part of it. All of the top drivers have had it applied at some point.
And if you're wondering how do you run over it with the front tyres, well, you run over it coming in, because it's laid out in the pit for the outside left front tyre maker ready to go to change the left tyre.
So there's Montoya then. He's had to drop right to the back of the field, and that's going to make his work extremely difficult. He's on the same pit stop strategy, so even in terms of strategy, they can't really call any clever tricks at this point. He's just going to have to see if he can make up some ground. But having said that, Adrian Fernandez has managed it so far today. He's running in 14th place, but he's been into the pits as well again, so he's back on the same strategy as everybody else. Fernandez has been one of the fastest cars on circuit. He's in 14th at the moment, but again, let's keep an eye out for his progress in the course of the race. Let's just quickly look through the order then. It's Franchitti ahead of Moreno, who's moved up thanks to his early stop. De Ferran, then Gugelmin, PJ Jones, Fittipaldi. Robbie Gordon has also moved up thanks to an earlier stop. Then Tracy, Montoya. No, it's not, because Montoya has been dropped to the back of the group. As we look on further down the list, Montoya will in fact join right at the back behind Vitolo, because all of those cars still on the lead lap.
And I'm not convinced that Gordon has stopped at all at this point. I think he stayed out. He may wait now and go in on the last lap of the yellow and get the fuel. Of course, track position, that kills you. But he may have hoped for a different strategy to, come out into play, but it hasn't. So Moreno, by being off sync, picks up second super sub, doing a super job at Pac West. And he will actually step out of the car, though, for the Michigan race coming up next week. And
no, I think he's going to stay in for that race, but it's the one after that he will be stepping out of Detroit. I think Moreno will stay in for the one more race after this weekend. But what we're hearing this weekend, interestingly, is he might end up somewhere else. Roberto Moreno is being talked about as a replacement for PJ Jones in the Patrick race team. Now, this is a replay. He ran over... Was that Vassar's hose?
He ran over Vassar's hose, yeah. His teammate's hose.
So that's what went wrong for Montoya. He didn't run over a hose in his own pit, but he did run over a hose in the pit ahead of him. Now, that's a tricky one, but it still applies, and it's up to the driver to avoid it. Now, it was unfortunate that the hose got chucked out just as he set off, so he didn't really get even a chance to see that it was there and avoid it. It's just a lack of timing, and I'm sure that his pit crew won't be very happy with Vassar's pit crew for leaving it in the way.
But with some of the incidents, Ben, we've seen this year in the pit lane, they are really trying to crack down on the safety issues and keep the pits clean and healthy. In fact, the pit boxes here are the largest we've seen as we get ready for a restart on lap number 35. Dario Franchitti, he's done it once before, and can he pull away again from Roberto Moreno at the green flag?
Green flag gets underway then, lap number 35. We've still got a long way to go in this race, some 60 laps to do. Roberto Moreno finds himself in second position, and he's had a very competitive run of races, standing in for Mark Blundell. Can he keep that momentum up here today? He had a problem, an engine problem last time out in Road America, but he is thoroughly enjoying his experience of a top-class team. Now on board with PJ Jones. PJ running much better up now. He's in 5th position as another of the drivers that stopped early.
Well, he's also probably heard the rumour that Roberto Moreno might be replacing him, and often we see some drivers put in their best performances when they start to hear that. But he runs a little bit wide there. And that is
Greg Moore again. Yeah, it's Greg Moore again. What is going on? Greg's having an awful day on Canadian soil. The Canadian is not having a very happy time. I wonder if he got collected by someone else or whether it was his own mistake. Hopefully we'll get a chance to see in a moment. Look at the concrete patch on the bottom part of your picture. That's what catches them out. It's a very different surface there, but it looks as though this was actually an incident. Yes.
Al Unser Jr. lost grip, came out a little bit. Greg Moore stalled it while trying to get going. He's still stalled. They're going to have to push him or tow him out, try and restart him, get him going. He's already a lap down. And Alonso Jr. making his 265th career start, which is a record for career starts. Over 18 seasons, 31 wins, getting together with Greg Moore.
A local yellow at that part of the circuit, and he's just about offline enough for them to be able to avoid him, hopefully. Of course, the yellow means no overtaking, so we shouldn't get any side-by-side. Let's go down to the pit lane now.
Was on Hearn's part.
He wasn't close enough to me to try to make the move, but again, he made a bad decision.
You're very unhappy, obviously. Will you talk to him?
No, I think there's nothing to be talked. He knows what he did. If he wants, he has to come to me and talk, you know.
All right, well, there you get the story from Cristiano. He manages a smile, guys, but believe me, he's smoking still.
Yeah, he is angry, and understandably. I think that maneuver of Richie Hearn's was optimistic, to say the least, as we have Greg Moore's car still to sort out. Shigeaki Hattori's been down the escape road as well, just out of that same area. Yeah, he seems to like that part of the circuit. And Dario Franchitti is still in control. So there we saw the overall positions. Into the pits now, this is interesting. Patrick Carpentier decides to come into the pits at this point. And let's see, they look as though it's just a routine stop here. They should be getting him out very quickly again. Once again, apologies for those of you watching on Eurosport who struggled to watch the early part of this race. We had all sorts of technical problems, and we do offer our apologies for that. Great shame that you weren't able to see the opening stages of the race, but hopefully you're watching this now and getting all the action. Montoya's been in again and back out onto the circuit. Now, I'm not quite sure why he made another stop. Of course, he had to drop right to the back of the field, and I think they're just taking advantage of this yellow to top him off with fuel.
Top him off with fuel, and because they did do a green flag lap or two, does it in fact save the whole penalty? Now he'll rejoin somewhere else in the pack, not necessarily right at the back, and have full fuel and new tyres.
Well, we'll have to see where he rejoins. That's a good point. He may well have gained from this. Oh, he's got to watch out because Greg Moore's car is being pushed away from the wall, and hopefully he's going to get into this race once again. All sorts of fun and games in this race. We saw an Indy Lights race this afternoon, which also provided plenty of entertainment. And we saw all sorts of yellow flag situations coming out in that one. We also saw Oriol Servia finishing second in that race and taking a very healthy championship lead, but the race itself was won by the American Jeff Boss. Don't forget, you can watch highlights of Indy Lights with us on Eurosport in the midweek Start Your Engines program, and you'll always be able to watch highlights indeed of the Champ Car races in Start Your Engines on Wednesday. So if you do ever miss out on any of the action, that's the place to catch up with what's happened. Back on board with Robbie Gordon, and he lies in 8th position at the moment, just behind Fittipaldi and Tracy. "38 laps have been completed of the 1.7-mile Toronto street track. We're on the shore of Lake Ontario this weekend, so the teams moved east and over the border into Canada, and an interesting trip for one or two of the teams.
Oh, actually coming from Wisconsin, they just drove up north to Manitowoc, got on the SS Badger and ferried across to Michigan and drove up from there. A number of teams did that, and the hospitality teams, saving themselves about 450 miles of driving. As we take a look at 38 lap results and who is out of this race, Castro Neves, the first one out very early on, Andretti out early on too after contact
with this man indeed, who's just come back out again, Greg Moore,
and now dropped to, I believe, 3 laps. Well, this will make him 4 laps down, I believe, after that long stop. But Greg, obviously being Canadian, although not from the Toronto area, he's from British Columbia, but with that player sponsorship, he wants to be out there and, of course, still try and score some points.
If possible, yes. His teammate, Patrick Carpentier, has been in the pits again. He's in 18th place as you look through the summary. Franchitti still in control of this race, trying to maintain concentration. Difficult. And just look at the picture there, the marbles, as we call them, the little pieces of rubber littering the side of the track. Just huge numbers of little bits of rubber as a result of the tyre companies battling against one another, each coming up with a slightly softer compound tyre that hopefully just lasts the distance of one stint of the race, and you end up with all these little bits of rubber everywhere, and that's what we see now. One of the Walker cars coming in the pits.
Gidley, I believe, has just pulled into the pit.
Mimo Gidley, the rookie driver, who's put in a very good showing indeed. He's running in 10th place so far. There's the other car, Gilles de Ferran. De Ferran running in 3rd place. So Mimo Gidley into the pits, dropping down the order, but taking advantage, again, tactically, I think, for a refuel and change of tyres. Alonso Jr. down the back of the field. He's running in 15th position here today. Franchitti leads as we've got green flag racing underway again here in Toronto, and he's trying to establish that advantage once more, this time over Roberto Moreno. Then it's Gilles de Ferran and Maurizio Gugelmin. We've got Brazilians running 2nd, 3rd and 4th at the moment. Moreno for Pac West, de Ferran for Walker Racing, and Gugelmin also for Pac West. Then it's PJ Jones as Juan Montoya desperately trying to make up some ground from the back of the field now, as he's been dropped into 18th position and has all sorts of work to do.
You saw him just drive right by Alonso Jr. there. This is PJ Jones and Christian Fittipaldi. Bobby Gordon coming into the picture. Montoya's got a long way to go, but he's got some time to get it done.
Adrian Fernandez up to 10th place now as well, and he is flying. He's just in that back of the group that we're looking at. Fernandez, you see there, in fact, in the green and red car, looking to get alongside Tony Kanaan. He's trying to go around the outside of him. My word, that's brave, but it doesn't quite come off. I thought for a moment he's going to get squeezed into the wall, but I tell you what, Fernandez is completely fired up here today. This is one of the best races I've seen him drive for a long time.
He's driving a brilliant race here today. I just hated to see him go out there and risk that move and then throw away what's been a fantastic drive here in Toronto. Right behind him though too, sticking in there with his Toyota power.
Yeah, that's right. Fernandez did drive hard in Road America, but he made a few mistakes along the way. He came back to finish in 3rd place, so that was a strong result for him, but he did have 1 or 2 problems. There's Dario Franchitti trying to lap Richie Hearn. He got a bit confused there as Richie wasn't quite sure whether to let him through, and then he did. And now Franchitti's safely passed, and Roberto Moreno has the task of getting past the Budweiser machine of Richie Hearn. Look at the bumps. That's where you can really see it, isn't it? They really bounce all over the place on the outside line.
Very, very bumpy. And the track is not very grippy in areas, but although a bit grippier than it has been in the past. But that bumping just takes its wear and tear, on the gearbox, on the driver too. I mean, just... You can see the car just move over inches every time it hits a bump, and it just throws it offline, and then you've got to counter that all the time, and that gets exhausting on you, and of course a lot of bruising going on at this point.
Yes, and it makes it unpredictable. If you hit the bump slightly differently, one lap to another lap, then it can throw the car offline and into the concrete wall. So you've really got to keep the concentration, keep focused here, and avoid mistakes. Last year, remember, Franchitti suffered a brake pedal that was going long on him. He went for the brakes and the pedal went down further than expected, and he didn't get the car slowed down in time and spun at turn number 1. Brake problems are often the case here. They get very, very hot indeed, having to decelerate from about 185, 190 miles an hour at the end of this stretch, right down to a 40 mile an hour corner. The brakes take a hell of a pounding, and I think Franchitti will be very aware of looking after the brakes, perhaps giving them a little extra pump on the brakes when he knows he's got to use them in a hurry.
Now the interesting thing is Moreno and PJ Jones, who you see running up there, they first pitted on lap 14, and any moment now they're going to be ready to make their second pit stop, because they've done another 30-odd laps since that stop, and they're good. The pit window is normally about 33 laps here at Toronto.
Yes, that's right, but it could come back to them again later in the race, because most of these front runners will have to make another stop around lap number 65 or so, and then have another 30 laps into the end. Looks as though everybody's on a pretty similar strategy at the moment. We're just going to have to see how that pans out later in the race. Moreno then running very competitively in 2nd position at the moment. He's had some great runs since replacing Mark Blundell. One of his best was at Gateway when he finished in 4th place, having started 19th on the grid. He also had a strong 7th place at Portland, and then followed that up with 8th position in Cleveland, which could in fact have been even better given a little bit of luck. And he's driven well this year. He's a bit of a veteran driver these days. In fact, he qualified 4th here at Toronto way back in 1986. Gives you some idea of how long ago his first Champ Car starts were. He hasn't raced in the series ever since then, of course. He's done Formula 3000, he's raced bits and pieces in Formula 1, sports cars, all sorts of things. But
IRL cars, and he's actually subbed on an IRL team this year as well.
That's right, so he really mixes and matches, but he's driven extremely well this year in his replacement outings, and that's given him the chance to perhaps pick up some more drives later in the season.
So if Moreno and Gugelmin can hang on, they may be able to go to the end if they get a little bit of help from the yellows there too. Mauricio Gugelmin, currently running in 4th position, is making his 99th consecutive kart start here today. As Adrian now has a look at Robbie Gordon.
Yeah, looking for a way up into 9th place.
There it is.
Down the outside. He's so good on the brakes, isn't he? Down the outside into turn 3, and Gordon had absolutely no reply for him at all. And so Fernandez now pops up into 9th position. And in fact, several cars. Gordon's got a problem. In fact, he's really slowing down here, and everybody piling past Californian.
He's coming in the pits to get some fuel, I would guess.
Yes, he must be just about due for his pit stop, but then surely he wouldn't just let these guys come through. He's lost a lot of track position as a result of that, and perhaps it's something slightly more serious than just fuel. Meanwhile, Juan Montoya has got himself into 13th position, so he is making progress. Last time around, he was right behind Max Papis. That's the next one on his list. There it is, in fact. There's the battle: Pruitt, Papis, Montoya. And the Colombian, leader of the championship, by 18 points coming into this race, looking set to extend that advantage because Michael Andretti will not finish here today, and Montoya trying to work his way back up into the points.
The amazing thing about Montoya is of his 113 points, he's scored 96 of them in just 5 races, which is actually an incredible statistic.
And of course, he's taken 4 wins this year. He's the only driver to have won more than once. All the other drivers have taken just 1 victory. Montoya's taken 4 wins. He's taken 4 pole positions. But this weekend, well, it hasn't really been there for him. He's been trying hard. Been reports of him on people watching around the track saying he was trying very, very hard, particularly on Friday, getting it all crossed up all over the place. But he just didn't quite manage to get a setup that he could live with and still produce quick lap times.
And the other thing about Montoya is everyone expects him to be good on the road courses. Well, he's won on a street course, he's won on an airport course, he's won on the ovals too. So Montoya's adapted to the challenge of the kart series very, very quickly.
Yes, of course, these are the sort of tracks that he was expected to shine on. He has shone just about everywhere.
He's taken a lot less time.
He's
Too
so
close.
He's made contact with Papis. He got it back together though. That was just braking a fraction too late. Papis was already on the brakes, and they made slight contact. Now they may have got away with that.
That was incredibly close to a huge incident because Max actually moved over him on a little bit, and if Montoya's left front had hit the right rear of Papis, that would have launched the car. Chip Ganassi is not happy about that at all because you can see Max moved over a little bit, and Montoya had made it obvious he was staying there all the time. There's Max's move.
Yes, he just made a little move initially to the outside and then came back in again. It didn't look too dramatic, but Montoya thought for a moment that he might have had a chance, but really I think also he misjudged it a little bit on the brakes and just almost did what Andretti did to Greg Moore. This time they both survive, and Ganassi is complaining to the kart steward, saying that Papis isn't driving properly. Well, whether he will get his message heard or not.
He's saying it quite like that, Ben.
No, probably not. But I'm not going to repeat what he might be saying. This is a family show, guy.
The touch of the wall that Montoya had too may have just slightly bent a suspension arm or just put a little crack in it, and that could affect the handling of his car. But we still have another half of this race to go.
Franchitti is enjoying himself up front. Again, he's opened up a 4-second advantage. It looks to me as though he sort of has set that himself as a target. Open up 4 seconds, then just lap consistently and evenly. And that's what he's doing at the moment. Although, in fact, as I say that, he's just put in a very quick lap, much faster than Moreno. Moreno dropped back quite a lot on that lap. He lost about 1.4 seconds. And I don't know whether that was because he got stuck behind Richie Hearn.
Well, no, he was ahead of Richie Hearn. Richie Hearn's actually catching Moreno. Moreno must have backed it way off, try and squeeze one more lap in before making his pit stop.
Yeah, that must be it. They're trying to get the fuel consumption out of the two-pack West cars, which stopped early. Meanwhile, PJ Jones is fending off Christian Fittipaldi here, and this is the battle for 5th position.
And guess who's involved in it? Adrian Fernandez in 9th.
Yeah, it's Canaan and Fernandez at the back of that little group. This was Ganassi getting very upset with the blocking manoeuvres of Max Papis. And this is the replay again at full speed. Let's take another look at this.
Oh, they're so close to touching. Amazingly, though, Max gives a little wave.
Yeah.
And Montoya doesn't react until after the corner and shake him with a fist.
Yes, there was definitely a little hand up from Max Papis to sort of say, well, sorry, or something or other. Montoya not very impressed by the whole operation. So they both survive. Papis 11th, Montoya into the points now in 12th place. But behind this gaggle of cars that are all fighting over 5th position, in fact, Jones in 5th, Fittipaldi in 6th. Then it's Paul Tracy's there in the Team Green car. Then Tony Kanaan, he's going well. And then Adrian Fernandez, who almost got past Kanaan a few laps ago, but didn't quite make it stick.
And just to mention him, because he's doing a great job, still running out there in 10th position, the fastest Toyota, Scott Pruitt's hanging out.
Good to see that. Scott Pruitt had a bad season so far, but they've made some engineering changes there, and he's much happier now. Get a much better relationship with his race engineer, and that seems to be producing results already.
Scott, of course, is the oldest guy in the field at 39 years old.
So around they come to complete another lap. 51 laps completed by Dario Franchitti, whose advantage has now, in fact, increased massively over Roberto Moreno. It's up to 7.1 seconds. Again, due to Moreno trying to save fuel at this point, he really has backed off the pace. And, of course, it means that those behind him are not going much quicker. They can't get past Moreno, and they're looking at trying to get past him as quickly as possible. Indeed, Max Papis has been given a warning for blocking, as Christian Fittipaldi still stuck behind PJ Jones.
The interesting thing with that corner there was PJ, as he tries to defend his position from Christian, and Christian takes a look at either way to go around him. Christian at the same time has got to defend his position from Paul Tracy right behind him. So you see a gaggle of cars, and they all spread out going into the turn, deciding which way to go and to try and block the guy from behind.
Good to see a street track that has overtaking possibilities on it, though. It is possible, as you can see from the design of the track here in Toronto. A nice long straight with a tight right-hander at the end of it. Decent amount of width going into the corner, and it really is possible to overtake, which is great news. This is the onboard view with Fernandez, and you can see how he's moved up through the race so far.
He was up to 13th, incredibly. Look at that, 12 laps it took him to take 10 positions. Then through the pit stops, everything, he dropped back a couple, and now runs in the 9th position at full speed right here.
As you said, Guy. Oh, look at that. He's got the inside of Tony Kanaan. Yes, and I think he's made it work. Now, that was from a long way back.
That was from a long way back, but he's pulled it off and picked up the 8th spot.
Look at the correction on the exit of the corner. A quick flash of oversteer as he corrects the car. And where that came from, I wasn't expecting that at all, as suddenly he was down the inside of Tony Kanaan, and he's taken over that position. Great pace, great racecraft as well from Adrian Fernandez, as you say, now into 8th place. And look, the car dancing over the bumps. Fernandez is really attacking this course today.
And we've seen Tony Kanaan make that move, so he's obviously got great brakes too. But Adrian Fernandez obviously even better than Kanaan, as he, as you say, came from nowhere down the inside. A brilliant move by Adrian Fernandez.
So, PJ Jones is the main blocking point at the moment. We're hearing that somebody's getting some rain tyres ready.
Oh, I see some sprinkles as well.
Yes, there's just a little bit of moisture around, bit of cloud, much more cloud than there was earlier, as Franchitti continues to lead his advantage, 7.6 seconds. PJ Jones here, still fending off Christian Fittipaldi, and this whole gaggle of cars really that has got caught up behind PJ Jones, including right at the back of that group there, Montoya.
This man is right behind Max Papis, who's been warned about his blocking since the moment before with Montoya. The crews are watching him carefully. There's reports of rain coming into the area. This is going to make this a very dramatic race. 53 laps are complete. Montoya is under 1 point at this point. He wants to get up to the front where he gets 20 for a win.
Yeah, that's going to take some doing, though, because
PJ Jones is holding this whole gaggle up. He's in 5th position, and that's allowed all these guys to close up. We've got Jones, and at the back of the pack, Montoya.
Amazing to see them all quite so close together. That's the whole line there. Yes, you saw it from Jones at the front, right the way through. There's Pruitt, there's Papis, there's Montoya. That's the back of that group, and that's positions 5 right the way down to position 12. And again, now, can Montoya do something about Max Papis in the background there? As PJ is gonna get himself into trouble in a minute, because he is moving around a lot on the approach to the corner and really blocking, I would say, there Christian Fittipaldi, who had a chance to go to the inside, and then PJ suddenly decided, no, you're not coming to the inside. He's going to have to watch out a little bit, I think.
PJ is actually desperately looking for a great run. He had a great run at Nazareth. And as I say, there's talk of being replaced by Moreno, so obviously this is when you really put in your best performance, although he's obviously under power, or under the handling of the whole field behind him right now, but he's doing his best to hold him off as he comes into the pits, which means Moreno should be due in too, as they stopped at the same time.
At last, PJ brings it in. He was struggling there with fuel consumption as well, so he didn't have full power to use. And he comes in on lap 55. Now, that means he's got to try and make it through 40 laps. That's going to be tough.
Unless he gets the help of a yellow. This may have been a brilliant call. He held them all off. He was under power because he was trying to conserve fuel to go to 55. The guys, the engineers had done the calculations and said, we figure you can go 40 laps. In fact, they have gone 40 laps since he first stopped on lap 14.
That's right, so that should be okay. He should be able to make it through to the end of the race now on the amount of fuel in the car. And remember, the front runners we're expecting to have to see stop again. Everybody, in fact, apart from PJ Jones, due to stop one more time, as we see race leader Dario Franchitti complete 56 laps now, and we still don't see Moreno, waiting for the second place man to cross the line. Still no sign of him. There he goes, 8.54 seconds behind, and Franchitti has a very comfortable advantage, but you can bet that he will not be thinking about that. He had this race in the palm of his hand last year until lap number 76, when he threw it away with a spin at turn number 1. We're still 20 laps away from lap number 76.
There is Moreno. We'll see if he peels off. A couple more turns. Richie Hearn right behind him. Don't forget Richie Hearn involved in that incident earlier with Cristiano D'Amato. So he is not for a position.
No, Richie Hearn is lying 3 laps behind, in fact. Partly as a result of that accident where he was stuck against the wall for quite a while. So Richie 3 laps down and running in 21st place, but Moreno's getting ready to come in. Indeed. Yep. Look, very tricky at pit lane entry. There's a lot of tarmac there. They've completely wiped out part of Exhibition Place. There used to be an old stadium which has been wiped out. A lot of new tarmac's gone down, and it makes that pit lane entry really very tricky indeed. Now then, let's see what happens at this pit stop.
His teammate Gugelmin coming in right in front of him there. There's Gugelmin. Looks to me like Moreno's stop at this point is taking a little bit longer than it should do, about 18 seconds.
Going out. Keep your 2 wheels under.
Gets away cleanly. A lot of fuel to go on board there, of course. They've got to fill it right up to the very brim to make sure they've got enough to make it to the checkered flag, but they ought to be able to do that on this stop. Now, this will drop them right down the order, of course. Remember that, because the front runners won't have to stop for quite a while yet. But when the front runners have made their stops, you will then see Moreno and Gugelmin pop back up the order. Once again, they are still very much a factor in this race. Moreno and Gugelmin, the PacWest team, which has had a difficult season this year, an even worse one last year, but perhaps today it could be better for them. Franchitti leads, 58 laps completed. Dario Franchitti then, controlling the pace of this race. Somebody locks up in front of him there, but I don't think it's anything too dramatic. No, he gets through turn number 1 safely. Over these concrete patches, there is Gilles de Ferran now. He's up to 2nd place now that Roberto Moreno has made his pit stop. And Gilles trying to lap at the same sort of pace, but he's on the Goodyear tyre, remember, so that makes a slight difference in performance. Then Fittipaldi third and Tracy fourth.
They're now back into their normal order. The big difference is that Franchitti now has an 11-second lead instead of an 8-second lead, and if he can maintain that when it comes to the final round of pit stops, that's a huge advantage to have.
It will depend on yellows later in the race. We'll have to watch out for. On board with Adrian Fernandez at the moment. He's now all the way up into 5th place. Now, Adrian made an early pit stop, but he then made another pit stop to get himself on terms with the other leaders. So he has really driven superbly here, and he's in a genuine 5th position. Now, later in the race, we will see Moreno and Gugelmin reappear in the top 10. But we'll just have to see exactly where. It will depend on everybody else's pit stop. And it may be that the other pit stops of the front runners will be slightly quicker. They may not have to put a completely full tank of fuel in to make it through to the end.
Dario being very careful, going by Shigeaki Hattori there, maintaining his lead. I'm guessing that we will see pit stops in about another 8 to 10 laps for the leaders on the regular pit window that they've had. And of course, Moreno and Gugelmin at this point and PJ Jones are not going to be stopping again. So we'll see what happens there.
Oh, there's been an accident down there. Michel Jourdain is one of them, and somebody else also. Oh, and it's Jimmy. Is it Jimmy or is it Montoya?
Montoya.
It's Montoya. Montoya is out of this race, and it's all gone wrong for the Colombian. Drama indeed for Juan Montoya. He raises his hands in question to Michel Jourdain. Let's try and find out what happened. Montoya was going down the inside of Michel Jourdain, looked to be comfortable, no problem. They came up out of the corner, and oh, well, that was just Jourdain, completely Jourdain's fault. He lost control of his car under acceleration out of turn 3. And what was he doing anyway? They were battling for position, in fact. They were battling over 11th place. They were side by side. Montoya gave him room.
Not much room. He didn't give him much room there, and Michel Jourdain was getting awfully close to that wall, and I think you'll find a little twitch back to say, hey, give me some room here. Montoya's making an initial move.
Yeah, they get side by side. Jourdain gives him room here. Now,
look how close he is. Well, you're right, and getting on the gas.
He got on the gas and the back end of the car stepped out, and that was really, I think, what caused the problem. Now, this has given the leaders their chance to come in again under yellow for the second time, and it's pretty good. It's lap 60. It's only 30 laps after their last one. 35 laps to go. Again, it's just about perfect.
Again, though, this has taken away Dario's 11-second lead.
But he comes in. He comes in because he comes in as soon as the yellow comes out. He comes in with still quite an advantage because the yellow's only just come out, so it doesn't give everybody a chance to close up behind the pace car. So in fact, he came in with quite an advantage over Gilles de Ferran,
who is now getting his work done by the Walker pit crew, and he is back out.
Battle between him and Fittipaldi and Tracy. And Tracy's got ahead of Christian as a result of that pit stop. Tracy's moved ahead of Fittipaldi.
There you go. We see positions change in the pits a lot, and there is a classic example of a great pit stop. And de Ferran gets out, but Tracy gets by Fittipaldi, and those guys will now race back. They'll work their way back to the pace car, because it's obviously going to be a fairly long yellow with the Jourdain's and Montoya's car off. The guy, of course, that's jumping the highest right now on the pit wall is Michael Andretti, because it hasn't affected him and Montoya in the points. How close he is to Montoya, of course, it affects whether he's in second position afterwards or not. As Vasta struggles, Jimmy had dropped all the way back to 19th, because when he came in on his last stop, he wasn't happy with the tyre, and he came back in and got another tyre and went back out, and that's what dropped him all the way back. But now Jimmy will try and fight his way back into a points-paying position.
Isn't it a shame? For once, Jimmy was running really well this weekend, only to have that tyre problem, and that's what's dropped him back. That's why we haven't seen anything of him recently, because he's been trying to make up that lost ground. Let's take another look at that pit stop when Gilles de Ferran got out, and it was Fittipaldi just getting out at the same time. And
did de Ferran hit that left rear wheel of Fittipaldi's car?
Oh, I don't know. Did he?
Because if he did, let's take a look. The pit crew's supposed to move it.
Oh yes, it did. He did clip that rear wheel. The pit crew had removed the first one, the top one, but then Gilles clipped the second one.
But was the second one actually quite far out, further out than it's supposed to be? That'll be reviewed a lot, because sometimes the crews do that, knowing it's hard for them to get around it. Be interesting to see what Wally Dollarbat rules on this one.
Yeah, it could hurt Gilles de Ferran. Let's find out in just a moment. Behind the pace car, Dario Franchitti is race leader. Richie Hearn is actually the car immediately behind the pace car, but Franchitti is our race leader here at the Molson Indy in Toronto, round 11 of the 1999 FedEx Championship Series. Ben Edwards and Guy Hobbs with you, bringing you coverage of this event. And second position at the moment is Patrick Carpentier, although he is yet to make his second stop. Robbie Gordon seems to be cruising very slowly at the moment.
Oh, and right at the wrong place, just at the end of pit lane.
Yes,
so he's going to go all the way around again.
Robbie Gordon has had a bit of an up and down afternoon, was running in 16th position just before this problem that he seems to be suffering at the moment. Franchitti up front, then to Ferran. Has not been given a penalty as yet, is being reviewed by the card officials. Talking about the incident in the pit lane where he flicked up one of the rear tyres of Christian Fittipaldi. That's all being looked at and analysed at the moment. But of course, Paul Tracy gained as a result of those pit stops, and he's now running fourth. So Team Green so far are having a great time. They've got a car in the lead and a car in fourth position. We've got Carpentier running second, but we're expecting him to make another pit stop. Ferran well up as well.
So, okay, Robbie was waiting for the pace car. Is what he was doing. Sorry about that. But then Richie Hearn didn't realise that that's what... No, Robbie's not sure if he's waiting for the pace car. And they're going to send him in front, yeah. In fact, Robbie was the last car on the lead lap in 15th position, and I think what happened is they sent him out, and they're saying he is in fact down a lap, so he will start just ahead of Richie Hearn, and then the leaders right behind them.
Yes, that's right. So those two cars at the front of this queue are a lap down. It's Dario Franchitti in the green and white car that leads this race in Toronto.
Okay, now they let them go. They'll go all the way around and get on the back end of this line, which makes a lot more sense than to have them in front, because it just makes it very tricky for everybody to get by everybody else.
That's right. So these two will be told to get on with it and get around to the back as quickly as possible. And now that they've reorganized the field, it should be another lap or so before we get the green flag waving. Tracy just moving around. Roberto Moreno now finds himself in 6th position. He is now basically on the same strategy as everybody else, and so they've done a fine job there. Gugelmin didn't gain as much from that last round, so his pit stop must have been a bit longer when he came in earlier, because he's down in 11th place and just one ahead of Al Unser Jr. in the Lola, the Penske run Lola, which is just in the points there in 12th position.
And as I mentioned before, Al Jr. setting a record here today with his 265th career start. And here you see the Walker crew talking to, in fact that is Walker leaning over talking to the kart officials, trying to find out what exactly is going on.
Yes, well, I think arguing the case as regards any potential penalty that will be applied to Gilles for hitting the tyre in the pit lane was a difficult call, because the team put the tyres down. The question was, were they put in a decent position or not? And did Gilles hit those? Well, we saw him hit one of the wheels, but was it his fault or not? Well, we're hearing that they are going to put Gilles at the back of the line. That will drop him down to 16th, well, 15th position. So Gilles de Ferran, the pole sitter here, who did such a fine job in qualifying, and it's all gone wrong for him once again with that just fractional slide in the pit lane to catch the tyres that had been put aside Fittipaldi's car. That's such a tough call. He was trying to get out quickly because several of the cars were in the pits at the same time. But as you said earlier, Guy, safety in the pit lane is paramount importance, more important than track position.
But that is such a tough break for this team, because they had a rotten start to the season, mid of the half season. They did real well, and they got some good results in the win and picked up some points and were looking competitive in the championship. To keep that going, they come here, get the pole. Now it's all gone horribly pear-shaped for Gilles de Ferran as he goes to the back, not in the points-paying position. A lot of work to do with 30 laps remaining.
Yes, great disappointment indeed for Gilles de Ferran. The winner for Portland is not going to take another podium finish here today, sadly, in spite of running top 3 all afternoon. But that's the way it goes. And
same thing happened to him in Elkhart Lake. He ran top 3 all afternoon, and then with 14 laps remaining, had a problem. So a tough day for Gilles. Here it is again.
You look at the rear wheel of Fittipaldi's car, that was already there, and it was just too much wheel spin really from Gilles as he tried to get out in front of Tracy. Well, it succeeded in that he got out in front of Tracy, but sadly too much wheel spin. It caused that wheel to be hit, and that, I'm afraid, is the reason, and it has to be that way. Once again, you don't want wheels flying around in the pit lane due to the over-exuberance of drivers pulling out of their pits. That's the penalty you have to pay, and Gilles continues to wave people past him.
And again, we saw that happening earlier with Montoya. It must be the hardest thing in the world for Gilles to sit there, having put on a great race, and just go, oh yeah, just go by on the inside. I'll be at the back.
No problem. I'll just go back down here.
I'll just do it all again.
Dario Franchitti keeping focused, keeping energy in the tyres, keeping the heat in the tyres, waving Vassar past. Now this should be the last one, I think, or is he going to have to go right to the back? No, he's going right to the back of the queue, letting everybody through, including cars that are a lap or more down. So Gilles right at the back of the field now, and now he can get on with the business of warming his own tyres up, getting the engine to run more cleanly, having run so slowly, virtually at idle speed for most of that previous lap.
It's actually going to affect the points quite amazingly, because Montoya is not going to get any points, Michael Andretti is not getting any points. For Gilles de Ferran to get any significant points now is pretty slim. Fourth in the championship is Dario Franchitti. If he pulls off this win, leads the most laps, he's going to pick up 21 points. That's going to give him 108, and that'll be just 5 behind Montoya as we get ready to go into Michigan and the super speedway.
He's still got to do it though, and there are now 29 laps to go in Toronto. It'll be just 28 in fact as he crosses the line this time, and Franchitti again blasts away on the restart from Patrick Carpentier, who has right behind him Paul Tracy. Tracy going down the inside, two Canadians battling together in front of Canadian field, and they make contact, but I think they've got away with it. Oh dear, they were so close. They did touch as they came through turn 1, and now Carpentier is trying to defend from Christian Fittipaldi and Roberto Moreno.
And you know what, Adrian Fernandez ran really wide on that first turn. I hope he didn't just clip the wall. Carpentier making it very difficult for everybody to get by him. He's not genuinely in second position. That was all just because of the pit stop rotation. Now making it tricky for everybody. And here comes Moreno, he has a look, but Carpentier says no.
Carpentier really fighting his ground, as he's got every right to do. He, as you say, he's still got a pit stop to make, but he doesn't want to lose too many places before he makes that pit stop, and that's what he's doing. He's fighting, and Moreno's down the inside now, and Carpentier loses another place, and he's really not doing himself any favours.
All down the inside.
Oh, where are they all going? They're just all looking for a way past Patrick Carpentier. Next up, Tony Kanaan and Max Papis there, absolutely together. In fact, I think Papis got past Kanaan as a result of all that.
Yeah, because Kanaan tried to go down the inside of Carpentier, as Carpentier was trying to fight off Moreno. And in the end, Papis got the position.
And now we're on board with Adrian Fernandez, who's at the back of this grid. What great pictures we're enjoying here this afternoon.
Watch for this move. As everybody comes into turn 3, almost 200 miles per hour. There's going to be some braking moves here. We know Kanaan's got great brakes, although he locks them up there. Fernandez has got great brakes. Papis having a look.
Look at them further back too, as they all struggle for position. Papis, no, I thought he might have a go up the inside into turn 5, decides against it and settles back into position once again. So Carpentier runs in 5th place, hounded by Papis and Kanaan, with right behind them Adrian Fernandez, and then still running well, Scott Pruitt.
Carpentier's got to be sitting there going, mon Dieu. There's a lot of people coming down. Papis looks on the inside again at turn 10. That's going to lose him a lot of speed.
Yeah, that's right. This could give Tony Kanaan an opportunity
on Papis
into turn number 1, which is what they're coming into now. Not close enough though, I think. No, not enough time, not enough space for Kanaan. As we look back down the field, a number of other drivers trying to find some places. Remember, Gilles de Ferran's desperately trying to make up ground. He's now in 15th position. Jimmy Vassar is in 13th place. Both of them having had problems in the early part of the race, or indeed for de Ferran very recently. Look at this, BJ Jones locked up, and Greg's got problems. Now that's some sort of mechanical problem on Greg's car, I think. That looked like smoke from the gearbox rather than from tyres, and de Ferran. Oh, maybe there was contact there between de Ferran and I don't know who, but he has now stopped.
Well, maybe Greg, because maybe Greg did have a mechanical lead up, and maybe Gilles ran into the back of him as he was trying to work his way past Alonso Jr.
There is a report of oil from the back of the 99 car of Greg Moore, so it is some sort of mechanical failure there, engine or gearbox, I'm not sure which. And Gilles de Ferran has stalled the engine, and it looks as though his bad days just got even worse.
Gilles' day, yeah, exactly, it's gone from bad to worse. You can see a huge flat spot on his right front as Franchitti approaches the area now.
You can see the oil there, Guy. Look at this big line of it, and he was able to avoid that. In fact, the drivers will see that even more clearly than we can.
Well, they're getting the oil flag as they come onto the straightaway. Let's take a look at it again. There's Fernandez, and that's Greg Moore off to the right at the back of the picture.
Now, where's de Ferran? Can you see de Ferran in the top of the picture?
He's knocking it up back there. He's hit the oil.
Yeah, that's right. He braked on the oil that Greg Moore had just laid down, and phew, round it went. A quick pirouette, and Gilles de Ferran stalled by the side of the road. Now, it's a full course yellow once again. Everybody has made their pit stops except for Carpentier. We'll probably see Patrick come into the pits at this stage. Tracy running second now, though, so it's a Team Green 1-2, would you believe it, at this point in the race.
You see Dario shaking his head right there. That was right in front of his pit crew. Obviously asking him over the radio, do you want to come in for new tyres for the last dash to the cash? And he's shaking, no thanks, just keep it as we are. Everything's running good. It's been a good solid car. Here comes Carpentier after that huge battle. Everybody's trying to get by him. He got the break he needed with the yellow flag, but he's going to lose track position. And Carpentier getting the service of his players' crew, and they'll be back out the Forsyth team.
He gets away safely. There is Greg Moore. Engine failure or gearbox failure, hard to see exactly what the trouble was. End of his day, but it's been a pretty disastrous day anyway. Franchitti and Tracy, Team Green 1-2. Fittipaldi running in third. Gilles de Ferran makes his way back to the pit lane now as his race really pretty much over. He may well be sent back out again, but he spun on the oil that was laid down by Greg Moore. He had no chance, really. Completely blinded by the spray as well. Looks like they may be just making a tyre change. Look at that flat spot on that rear. It was completely worn away.
You could play chess on there.
You could almost, and that was a real judgery drive, I should think, back to the pit lane on those tyres. Derek Walker sees him out cleanly, but it does look as though de Ferran's going to struggle to score any points. Let's take another look at what happened there, Guy. It all started off with an engine or gearbox failure. We're still not quite sure which, but something let go big time at the back of Greg Moore's car and laid down a real oil slick.
But look how quickly he moved off the racing line, which was good for him. PJ Jones locks him up behind Al Jr. because he backs off because he sees the oil. And PJ Jones had an unbelievable view. Look at this view.
Look at the screen. Look at the oil hitting that camera screen as he headed down towards turn 3. And imagine
he has the same view.
He has the same view, and he's trying to brake from about 185 miles an hour for a second gear right-hander. Not a nice situation, and that's why these boys get paid so much money. Now then, let's take a look at the situation so far. Franchitti leads, Paul Tracy second, Christian Fittipaldi third, Roberto Moreno fourth ahead of Max Papis, who's up there in 5th, Tony Kanaan 6th, Fernandez still running well 7th, Pruitt 8th, Gugelmin 9th, Unser up to 10th now, PJ Jones 11th, and Mimo Gidley's in the last point scoring position in 12th.
We have 15 cars on the lead lap. Interestingly enough, Honda in 1-2. We told you at the beginning of the show they have won the last 9 street course races. However, Fittipaldi is threatening in 3rd in his Ford, and Ford swept the podium at Elkhart Lake last week. So with 22 laps remaining, it's look how much sand they're using. That's a huge let go.
It is, isn't it? You can really, that really shows you the line that Greg Moore took. He was in the middle of the straight or over to the inside wall, and then gradually worked his way out, as you say, tried to get offline so that everyone else had a clean run into the corner. But what this does do, of course, is it's going to make life even more difficult for those trying to overtake into this corner. Thankfully, at the main overtaking spot there, it is out pretty wide, so there could be an opportunity still to see some overtaking at this part of the track in the remaining laps, and we have some 21 laps more to do when they come around this time.
Now that vehicle you see in the back of the picture that looks very much like a Zamboni, which of course you see a lot of in Canada, that will drive up that line of sand and hopefully brush it all down so it doesn't make it slick for when they do come under their braking, and hopefully we will get green flag racing again soon.
Yes, this absorbent material trying to get pick that oil up as quickly as possible. Before all this action, of course, we saw Juan Montoya go out of the race in an incident with Michel Jourdain, and we've got a chance now to hear what Montoya had to say about it.
because when I left, I looked at that. I saw the house of it. Didn't have anywhere to go, so they put us in the back and they shouldn't. And then, you know, the same driver is briefing about blocking and all that, and you know, they're very inconsistent with everything. Car has always been like that, and it's tough race like that. You know, I'm coming from the back. I tried to pass him in the inside, he nearly put me in the wall. Then I'm going around the outside, he's trying to put me in the wall in the outside. I don't know what he's playing at.
So you're talking about Jourdain, because he had trouble with Pappas as well.
No, that was with Papis. And Jourdain was okay, you know. Put the car in the inside. When I look in the mirror, I didn't saw him, so I turned. I didn't know he was there.
Tough day.
Okay.
Interesting. It was Max Papis he was talking about there that he was so upset with, and it certainly looked like a pretty, well, hard-fought battle between them, didn't it?
And Juan is a rookie, and he got off to a huge lead in the championship. Everybody said, that's it, it's all over. This guy's come in, he's going to beat. Now he's finding out just how hard it is to win a championship in this car FedEx Series. The competition is incredibly tight. A little mistake in no points, and of course the driving. No one's going to give up easy. Papis isn't going to give up his position easy, just as Montoya would not do the same too. So he's just finding out, and it's a little disappointing. It's as tough as it is.
That's right. And remember, we're only just beginning the second half of the season here. There's an awfully long way to go, with the likes of Dario Franchitti, Michael Andretti still well up in the championship. Montoya is going to battle for the series title. Dario Franchitti looking at the signal being given, which is just 1 lap to go until green. Now then, Dario Franchitti and Paul Tracy. I know we've said this a few times this year, Guy, but they have had their incidents.
The history is not good between Paul Tracy and Dario Franchitti. Between them, they're great friends, but on the racetrack when they're running 1 and 2, it is not being sweet. Dario Franchitti had the most unbelievable save earlier this year when they made contact. And of course, last year at Houston, we had the problem. And I don't know if there's going to be any, well, there aren't any form of team orders. So it is going to be interesting to see, especially as they come down into this turn the first time on the restart, which is coming up.
It will be fun to see.
You know who's chewing his nails the most right now?
Barry Green.
Barry Green.
Yes, I can imagine. I can imagine that he's also telling them to behave themselves and keep it all under control. For them to get a 1-2 result would be a true achievement. We saw a 1-2 result for Newman Haas last week, and that was the first 1-2 result for a long time. I think it was since the days of Nigel Mansell, in fact, when Nigel and Mario had a 1-2 at the Michigan 500 race back in 1993. I think that was their last 1-2. But Team Green would just love to get a 1-2 result here today.
It would be a superb turnout for them, a superb result. Paul Tracy, of course, with all these other guys not scoring points, Paul Tracy would jump a long way up into the championship and get right back into battle, despite having missed, of course, the very first race of the year due to probation, so he was off to a handicap to start with.
Here we go then. Dario Franchitti begins to pick up the pace. He's expecting to see the green flag as he comes out of this sequence of corners. And does he get the break once again? Let's see. He accelerates out of the last corner, and the green flag awaits him. The green flag sets them off again on lap number 77 in here into Adrian Fernandez.
He's done it.
Yeah, through past Canaan, and he's made another position. So that puts Fernandez up into the 6th position, that is. 6th place for Fernandez. Max Papis ahead of him there in 5th place.
And here was where we were worried the first time right on this dust. Fittipaldi in 3rd, Moreno 4th, there's Papis.
Look at Alonso Jr. braking all the way down on the oil, and it worked. How did that work?
Well, you know what they're doing? They're using that grit as grip to get the late braking. That's unbelievable. Al Jr. getting racy with a few laps to go after not looking so good all weekend long.
No, he hasn't looked particularly interested this weekend, but now he's in the race, and he always looks more interested once in the race. Let's look at the restart. This was Fernandez going down the inside of Canaan. Canaan saw him just in time and able to just keep it out slightly wide. Good pass from Adrian Fernandez, but it was great fun down to turn number 3 on the oil as well. Franchitti again breaking away from the opposition, which means his teammate Paul Tracy.
Watch out for Canaan. Taking a little look there, it was a long way off, but you've always got to have a look and just show your nose a little bit. PJ Jones there, you saw him making a bit of a dash under Unser Jr. And now we have less than 20 laps remaining. Look at the dust being kicked up, Christian Fittipaldi. Let's see if anybody else breaks out wide. Adrian Fernandez uses it too. Canaan, Scott Pruitt right behind him.
Just shows you how effective that stuff is at absorbing the oil and clearing it up, because normally it takes a number of laps of cars running on it to clear it up, but that stuff really is very... Oh, there was a bit of contact there. Now, what's going on?
I think that was between Pruitt.
He's got past Canaan, hasn't he?
Good Lord.
Where did he get that from? I don't quite know. I couldn't quite see what happened, but there was a bit of a lock-up, and that obviously must have been the point that Pruitt managed to sneak past Tony Kanaan.
Pruitt, of course, running in the Toyota. Having a great run here today, up into 7th.
Yeah, amazing performance this from Scott Pruitt, who's failed to finish a number of races. The last 3 in a row he's failed to finish, and his best result of the season has been a fairly uninspiring 10th position. That was on the Nazareth Oval earlier on this year. So it's been a struggle for Scott Pruitt, who made the switch from Patrick Racing to the RCRO Wells team for this year, and now he finds himself in that battle, in that group, right behind the Patrick Racing car, ironically, of former teammate Adrian Fernandez.
Mimo Gidley's been looking all over PJ Jones this last lap. He now has looked down the inside as they go into 3. Jones goes wide, Unser right in front of him. And now Jones sticks to the inside line. Gidley goes back, but he's not given up that easily. Herter got overtaken in that whole sequence too.
Yes, Herter was passed by PJ Jones as Jones went round the outside. Herter is 2 laps down though, so he doesn't actually play a part in the battle for position at that stage of the race. Mimo Gidley now behind Brian Herter, but Brian lost the time in that earlier incident, and so there's not really a great deal he can do. Franchitti's advantage, 2.54 seconds, and there are some 16 laps still to go.
Now PJ's pulled out a bit of a gap over Herter, who is holding off Gidley right now, but as you point out, Herter 2 laps down, but Jimmy Vasser's at the back of that line too. He's not 2 laps down, he's in 13th position.
Down to turn 3, Roberto Moreno still running well. He lies in 4th place, Papis in 5th. There's Fernandez, Pruitt and Kanaan. All 3 of those tied together at the moment, battling over 6th position. Behind them, Maurizio Gugelmin, he's got a bit of a gap. Then it's Alonso Jr. running in 10th position. 11th spot for PJ Jones, 12th for Mimo Gidley.
And that's the last points-paying spot in the field.
Look at the little bits of rubber at the side of the track. Fernandez doesn't seem to be going quite as quickly now as he was earlier on.
Doesn't seem to be as aggressive as he was earlier.
Fastest man on the circuit is still race leader Dario Franchitti, although that last lap only a fraction faster than Tracy. In fact, Fittipaldi was a fraction faster than both of them. So Fittipaldi last lap was the fastest man around the circuit. Everyone else lapping very much at the same sort of pace, and Franchitti's advantage remains at 2.5 seconds.
And Fernandez, who we just saw there, 3 seconds behind Max Papis, who he's chasing down. So that's why you're not seeing Max Papis in the light car. And he's not able to pull away from Scott Pruitt at all. So maybe Adrian is suffering a little bit of a problem. Maybe the setup's just going away.
Maybe the tyres are just going off a little bit. Remember, he stopped pretty much the same time as the other front runner, so he shouldn't worry too much from that point of view. Other than the other guys who stopped earlier on, Moreno and Jones, now they may get into tyre wear problems a little bit more towards the end of the race, but for Dario Franchitti, as he comes down past these packed grandstands on the start-finish straight, this is all looking good. He's got past that bogey time of lap 76 when he threw it away last year. He had that brake problem which caused him to spin at turn 1. He's got past that point, but he's still got 14 laps to go to hold on here and take his first win of the season and his first win in Toronto.
Interesting, you've got a Scottish Italian, followed by an Irish Canadian, followed by a Brazilian, all racing up front, and then another Brazilian back to 5th place with the Italian, Max Papis, and the Adrian Fernandez, the Mexican.
There's a big Italian community here in Toronto, in fact. They cheered for Alex Zanardi when he was racing in the Champ Cars, and they're also cheering for Dario Franchitti. Franchitti, the Scotsman, he's a true Scot, but he's got Italian grandparents, and the Italian heritage is very important to him. And so he gets support from the Italian community and a good number of Scots who live here in Toronto as well. So he gets support all around, and I know he loves coming to this place. He loves the track. He always seems to go quickly here. It hasn't been particularly kind to him in the races so far. Perhaps it's 3rd time lucky as he comes back for his 3rd visit here this season. Looking at Fernandez still leading the group, the gaggle, for 6th position. And then,
amazing how this group, they're all running at the same pace. They've all ran together all the way from Fernandez back to, well, basically Gidley.
And I'm impressed by Mimo Gidley, Guy. I mean, he's only been in a few of these races so far this season, coming in as a rookie, replacing Naoki Hattori, who crashed badly in the first race of the season. And this is just the 4th start for Mimo Gidley. He's scored points already. He was in 11th place in Cleveland, qualified amazingly on the first day at Road America, dropped back the second day with engine problems. But again, he's putting in another strong drive. It's not anything dramatic, I suppose, but he's running consistently, and he's in 12th place.
And he's holding on to that last points-paying position. Jimmy Vasser's going to be challenging him for that, though, because Vasser desperately wants that point. We ride on board with Adrian Fernandez, who's driven from 23rd today up to 6th.
Let's just listen up for a moment. Let's listen to the Ford engine working hard here. 185 miles an hour, down to about 45 miles an hour for the right-hander. Takes 3rd briefly, stays in 3rd for the left-hander at turn 5. And then continues around on the lap as Alonso Jr. continues in his battle with PJ Jones. Jr. running in 10th position, and PJ Jones in 11th place. Talk of another driver joining the Penske ranks this year. We know that Alex Barron tested for Penske at Michigan last week, and in fact Alex Barron will be driving the Penske chassis, as will Alonso Jr., next weekend in Michigan. But also talk of Gonzalo Rodriguez, one of the stars of Formula 3000 at the moment, perhaps making an outing for Penske at the Detroit street race coming up in a couple of weeks' time. It's not being confirmed yet, but a good opportunity for Gonzalo Rodriguez, who competed against Montoya last year in Formula 3000 and is competing again this year in the series, to come into Champ Cars with one of the top teams, even if they're not at their height of competitiveness at the moment.
Seems like Penske is testing a lot of drivers this year. Obviously major plans for the year 2000. He's been asked a million questions this weekend, and at this point he's not really answering any of them, letting anybody know what exactly is going on. Dario Franchitti leaves. Christian Fittipaldi is in 3rd position. If Christian should finish on the podium again today, that will be 5 podiums in 5 different countries. Seems to do well on foreign soil.
It's amazing, isn't it? Yes, he's had a very consistent season in the points, as you said earlier, except for one race this year, and even then he finished only just outside the points because he was 14th. So Christian Fittipaldi enjoying his first ever win last week in Road America. Guy, I think you saw him, didn't you, that evening? He was a pretty happy man.
He was a very happy man, yes. Working his way here to Toronto, and a lot of media attention, of course, because it was his first one, and particularly popular back in Brazil. So he's been very busy all this week.
It's been a while since we've had a Brazilian winner too, and it's a good chance for the Brazilians to really kickstart their interest in the Champ Car Series. A few years ago it was Emerson Fittipaldi holding the flag for Brazil. This year Castro Neves has done a good job, but of course he seems to have suffered so often with mechanical problems, and now it's good to see Fittipaldi. Look at this replay, this was just a moment ago, PJ and Little Al.
And that locked up the right front of PJ, and it got stuck in there, but luckily didn't do too much damage to Little Al. Oh, I say that, he struggles through there, but Little Al and PJ switching positions.
I think they stayed where they were.
Well, they were trying to switch positions, pardon me, and Little Al has driven away from PJ now. PJ may have suffered a little bit as Vasser is charging him down and trying to get that extra point if he can get the extra position.
Yeah,
he's got by Gidley. Vasser had to go by Gidley, now he's got to get by Jones.
Now Barry Green is down in the pit lane, biting his nails no doubt, because he's got 2 cars running 1 and 2 at the moment. Dario Franchitti with a 2.9 second advantage over teammate Paul Tracy. Let's hear what Barry says.
Telling Paul to stay where he is. What's your team strategy?
Well, Paul's got a difficult job. You know, he's got the fight behind him, and then he's got to protect the back door. I think Dario's a little quicker than he has been all day, but we're going to try and stay in this formation. Paul's busy right now. Christian's pretty close to him, too close for my comfort, with still 7 laps to go, so a lot of racing left yet.
And a very, very nervous Barry Green. Thank you.
A nervous Barry Green indeed, as he waits to see the outcome of this race. And don't forget Christian Fittipaldi there in third place, still running very, very quickly indeed, although Tracy was a little bit faster than him on the last lap. Looks to me as though on this lap Fittipaldi's managed to close up the gap slightly.
And one other thing to point out too, Ben, as we get to the closing stages of this, Roberto Moreno and PJ Jones and Mauricio Gugelmin are going to have to start leaning it out towards the end, because remember, they're trying to go 40 laps. So we could see wholesale changes with the last couple of laps in positions up there, and that's going to make for some daring moves down the inside. See, Jones now is trying to conserve a little bit to make sure he makes it to the end, and that's why Vassar is up on him and able to work on him. Yeah, Vassar's still desperate to find a way past PJ Jones, and so far being frustrated in that attempt to go through. Jimmy Vassar enjoying a much better weekend, certainly in qualifying in the early part of this race, but sadly with the tyre problem earlier on. There was a bit of smoke there. Was that from the back of Junior? Alonso Junior's car smoking there. Yeah, that's a bad sign. It'd be good, because they finally got into the points and having a good race and running in 10th, and then to have a mechanical. Yeah, that really would be disastrous. In fact, Little Al's been in the points the last couple of races. He was 9th last time out in Road America, finished in 5th place in the wet, dry, wet, whatever, that was Cleveland. And before that, he'd been out of the points for a couple of races. But look at this, Jimmy Vassar this time, brakes on the outside. And now he's going to tuck in right behind and try and get off the corner quicker. No, not able to do it. Oh, PJ's making that car awfully wide. Yeah, but doing it fairly. He's just maintaining enough speed in the middle of the corner, and that's enabling him to stay ahead of Jimmy Vassar so far. So Franchitti completes 89 laps. There are 6 laps still to go here. His advantage still just under 3 seconds over Paul Tracy. It looks comfortable for him. Tracy, meanwhile, has a 1.5 seconds advantage over Fittipaldi. Then Roberto Moreno in 4th position, and this would match Roberto's best result of the year, standing in for Mark Blundell. He got a 4th place already this year. That was at Gateway, and it looks as though he's heading for another one here. And Vassar's got past Jones. We didn't see where it happened, but he has finally found a way past the Vistion car of PJ Jones. And now Gidley and Carpentier are going to try and do the same thing. Remember, Jones has got it leaned out a little bit because he's struggling to make the distance, as will Moreno and Gugelmin. This is a replay. Vassar, well, and ultimately it was a fairly simple move up the inside there, and PJ just could not fight that any longer. Now PJ was following Alonso Jr., and if you saw on that the camera on the wipe, there was a lot of liquid on that. We did see smoke from Junior's car earlier too, so maybe Junior is having problems. Just to let you know, in case you were wondering, we saw Gilles de Ferran go out earlier on with that spin. He did not rejoin, and Gilles de Ferran confirmed out of the race. So joining the list of retirements, Dennis Vitolo also out of the race. So we've got a list of retirements that includes Greg Moore, Michel Jourdain, Juan Montoya, Shigeaki Hattori, Cristiano De Mata, Gualter Sales, Michael Andretti, and Helio Castro Neves. Still 17 cars running. 2 of them are 2 laps down. That's Richie Hearn and Brian Herter. At the back of the lead lap, it's Robbie Gordon. And then we have up front, Dario Franchitti coming around this time to complete lap number 91. There are 4 more laps to do here in Toronto to finally crack this race, which has seen him score pole position twice, but both times for it to go wrong. About 7 miles for Dario Franchitti. After not getting the pole, he had said, well, I'll try starting from the outside pole, because starting from pole has not worked well for me. The first one, of course, racing for Hogan in his first year in the kart series, and it was one of Hogan's first poles in a long, long time, and unfortunately tangled together with the retired Bobby Rahal. Last year he started from pole, led 76 laps, brake pedal disappeared from him, and that left it down to Michael Andretti and Alex Zanardi to battle it out. Zanardi went on to win. Christian Fittipaldi, I must say, at this point is closing on Paul Tracy. He is a little bit closer, isn't he? But it doesn't seem to be consistent enough. He doesn't seem to be able to really close up enough to challenge for that position, and the Canadian crowd are enjoying seeing one of their drivers up there in 2nd place, a potential podium finish for Canada here today. They've seen problems for Greg Moore. They've seen Carpentier struggle this afternoon as well. But Paul Tracy does look as though he's going to be on the podium, and Fittipaldi again
another podium here today. 92 laps completed, 3 laps to go. Moreno crosses the line, and Max Papis crosses the line. And let's just talk about Max for a moment, because this is going to be one of his best results of the season. He did have a 4th place finish at Rio, which is his best of the year, and a 5th place at Gateway, but this would...
Oh, big trouble for Tony Kanaan.
Oh no.
Had a great run.
He must have made contact, surely, perhaps at the last corner. Looks as though he sideswiped the wall, because it's ripped off the right. Yeah, look, debris, top left of your screen, and Tony Kanaan has hit the wall out of that final corner. He was running in 7th position, or 8th position behind Scott Pruitt, and it looks as though it's all over for the young Brazilian.
And there's so much debris right in the middle of the track. Watch out, Paul, watch out, Paul. Yeah, he's run over the debris. They're showing just a local. I'm surprised, because one of these guys could easily rip a tyre. Well, they're going to try and finish this race under green with just 2 to go.
I'll tell you what, Dario ran over some of that stuff. You saw it flicking up, and those are little bits of carbon fibre that are terribly sharp when they if they get stuck into the tyre. Gugelmin! Oh! What's happened to Gugelmin? He's gone down the escape road. He was running in 8th, but he's kept the engine running, and he may not lose too much ground, but of course, remember, they were all so close. He is going to lose a number of places, and he is trying to rejoin. It's not turn 1, it's up at the last part of the circuit, turn number 9 that was, and Gugelmin does rejoin but loses a great many places.
There's going to be a brand new racing line through the left-hander, turn 11. I would stay tight and on the inside, forget the speed, just stay off the debris for that last lap.
A big scare for Franchitti there as he ran over bits and pieces.
If he runs tight here, you know, Barry Green probably saying stay tight, stay tight, stay tight. Oh no, he ran out pretty wide.
Not so much debris around at the moment, though. I think that they probably cleared it last time around, and they are on to the last lap. And Dario Franchitti has just got to keep it together for about 1.5 miles now to take his first win of the 1999 season. He looked as though he was going to win at Homestead in the season opener, but they did have a problem there. It looks as though he... Let's just see. He may be losing a little bit of time. We're worried that he may have picked up a slow puncture, but I think it's all right. The car looks okay. It's handling all right, and he's only got to make it round a few more corners.
Yeah, but Paul Tracy's right there. Christian Fittipaldi right there. Oh my, Moreno in 4th, Papis in 5th.
He's okay. I'm sure he's all right now. There are just 3 more corners to go. The right up at turn number 9, through turn 10. And through the last right and left that leads on to the start-finish line, Dario Franchitti takes his first win of the 1999 season and kickstarts his championship hopes once again. Paul Tracy takes 2nd place. It's a 1-2 for Team Green. A fabulous day for Barry Green and all the personnel there. And Fittipaldi, winner last week, takes 3rd place. He's on the podium again. Roberto Moreno matches his best of the season with 4th place. Max Papis in 5th place. And we're just waiting now for Adrian Fernandez to come across the line in 6th position, and there he goes. Pruitt is in 7th place. Vassar moved up to 8th. He got past Alonso Jr. somewhere with a couple of laps to go, so Jimmy Vassar through in 8th position, 9th for Little Al, 10th for PJ Jones, then Patrick Carpentier, and the last point scorer, Mimo Gidley. But Dario Franchitti has scored 21 points here today, and that puts him within 5 points now of the championship lead. Montoya leads the series, but Franchitti is now right with him in 2nd place in the table, and Andretti not far behind in 3rd. It sets things up wonderfully for the 2nd half of this season. Next week, they go to the Super Speedway at Michigan, a completely different kind of challenge, but you can bet that all the front runners will be going for maximum points once again on the first 500-mile race of the year. And we will, of course, bring full coverage of everything that happens at Michigan.
Kart Championship Series with Kia in gear.